Hello and welcome once again to our virtual classroom, ladies and gentlemen. And today we are going to be going over ratios, which is just ratio or ratios if it's plural. Now, what is a ratio? A ratio, ladies and gentlemen, is a numerical comparison between two different quantities. And the best way to explain a ratio is to simply write it down, and usually write ratios as a fraction. For example, let's suppose that we were looking at this assignment and we wanted to know the ratio between stars to squares. You're going to notice that oftentimes when we're comparing two different things, we're going to use the word two, tio. So we're comparing stars to squares. So let us look at over here. And specifically, not just squares, but let's compare stars to the little squares, just to be a little bit more specific. So ladies and gentlemen, notice that right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. And little squares, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little squares. So notice, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm comparing a part of the shapes of the figures right here to another part of those very same shapes. All right. Now, when I'm writing this as a ratio, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing I want to do is to write what are the two things that I'm comparing. So right here, I am comparing stars. So I'm going to put stars over, I'm going to put little or L squares. Squares, there you go, stars to squares. Why am I writing it down like this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, because the order is very important. Notice that I did not say squares to stars. I said stars to squares. So whatever you say first or whatever you have first, that is what's going to go on the numerator. So that's why we have stars to squares, not squares to stars. So how many stars do I have? Well, we said we had 5 stars. And how many little squares did we have? Well, we said we had 6 little squares. So ladies and gentlemen, the ratio of stars to squares, or stars to little squares specifically, is 5 to 6. 5 to 6. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, that I first wrote down the fraction in words, and then right next to that, I wrote down the number that refers to the stars over the number that refers to the little squares. That is the ratio of stars to squares. All right. Now, if I were to be typing this out on a computer, then like I can see here on Schoology, I would literally write 5/6. Now, there's a few different ways of writing this. So if I have it, I could write it as a fraction, just like I did here, 5 to 6. I can also write it. So again, we have 5/6. I can also write it using what is known as a colon. All right. So this is the same thing as 5:6. 5:6. So that's 5 to 6. 5 refers to stars. 6 refers to the little squares. Or I can also write it using words, 5 to 6. All three of these things are saying the exact same thing. Notice that the numerator is the first number on both of these, 5. And that is the first thing that was said. So also on Schoology, you can write it either way. You can write 5/6. You can write 5, no spaces, colon 6, sorry. Or you can write 5 space 2 space 6. Now, I think it's simpler to just write it like that, or using a colon. Either way works. Okay, let's try a different one. Let's suppose that we have let's try this one, circles to stars. So again, the first thing we want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is write down the ratio in words, circles to stars. And actually, let me see, before we do that, let me just check something really quick. Yes, circles to stars. And here, ladies and gentlemen, I can see that I have 2 circles. So I have 2 circles. Sorry, let me take Will the fluff. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have 2 circles. And we have 5 stars. So again, the first thing we want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is write down the fraction in words. So we have circles, and I'll do circles in red. Circles. Why am I putting circles first? Because that's the first thing that I saw. The order is very important. 2 or over stars. And I'm going to put stars in blue, just so we can see the stark difference. So now let me write down the numbers. So I have circles. I have 2 circles over 5 stars. So I'm going to put 5 on the bottom. So my ratio would be 2 to 5. The ratio of circles to stars would be 2 to 5. And it is that simple. It is that simple. Let's go ahead and do one more. And I'm going to choose one specifically, ladies and gentlemen. What if we were asking, let's look at this bottom one. Squares to all figures. Squares to all figures. Squares to all figures. Specifically little squares. Let's put little squares. Lit squares. All right, again, ladies and gentlemen, before I do this problem, I'm going to write down the fraction in words. So I'm going to put squares in red. So I'm going to put L squares over, and then all figures. I'm just going to put all figures. Now notice that in this scenario, ladies and gentlemen, I am comparing a part of the figures, a part which is the little squares, and I'm comparing that to all of them, or a whole of which the squares are part of. All right, so how many little squares do I have? Well, just counting them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 6 little squares. Out of how many total shapes? How many total shapes do we have? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 total shapes. Notice that those squares are part of those shapes. All right, they are part of that whole. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a part to whole comparison. So how many little squares do I have? I have 6 little squares over how many total shapes? I have 18 total shapes, including the little squares. So the ratio would be 6 to 18. Now with ratios, we want to make sure that we always simplify if possible. So 6 and 18 are both divisible by 6, actually. You can also divide by 2 and then divide by 2 and then divide by, and then divide by 3. That also works. But 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. So ladies and gentlemen, the ratio of little squares to all would be 1 to 3. 1 to 3. All right, let me just try one more. Let me just try one more with y'all. So let's go down here and do this one where it says a TV screen is 15 inches high. That is the height. And it is 20 inches wide. 20 inches wide. And we want to write the ratio. Well, notice, ladies and gentlemen, that here on number 2H, it's asking the height to the width. Height to width. So I'm going to write that as a fraction in words. So I'm going to put height, or H, on the numerator over, and let me use a different color, over the width. So H over W, height over width. And what is the height that is given to me? Well, the height is 15, right? And the width of this is, TV is 20. So the ratio is 15 over 20. The ratio of the height to the width is 15 over 20. However, ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure that we do simplify that. So let's go ahead and simplify this. Both of these are divisible by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is equal to 3. And 20 divided by 5 is equal to 4. So the ratio of the height to the width is 3/4. 3/4. And yes, that would actually be my final answer, 3/4. That's what I would type in on Schoology. Or I would put 3:4, 3/4/4, etc. Now, don't be confused, because notice what the very next one is asking. The next one is asking, what is the ratio of the width to the height? Now, I know that it's asking about the same two things, but notice that the order is reversed. And remember, the order is very important. So for that reason, ladies and gentlemen, my fraction in words is actually going to be width over height. Width over height. So this time, what is the width of this shape? Well, the width of this TV is 20. So it's going to be 20 over the height, which the height of this shape is 15. Now let's make sure we simplify that. And if we simplify that, again, both of these are divisible by 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4. And 15 divided by 5 will give me 3. So ladies and gentlemen, the ratio of the width over the height this time is actually 4/3, which is a different ratio than what I got over here. So again, do not be confused. Make sure that you keep a consistent order and that you're always simplifying wherever possible. It doesn't matter if it's an improper fraction, leave it as a fraction. Don't make it into a mixed number, and make sure that you're simplifying. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you found this video helpful. And with that in mind, I will see you next time.